Shay, how are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me here.
I um I think it's amazing we're even chatting because I followed you on LinkedIn for years and been impressed with your content, not just the structure of it, but just the boldness you have in your content. And I think too many people, especially on a platform like LinkedIn, when they post content, what they're really saying is, I just want everyone to agree with me. I want a lot of people to agree with me. I want a lot of comments, likes, and therefore build my brand. Whereas you're not afraid to have dissenters, right? And people just, don't agree with you, whatnot, because you believe in your message so much. And I just respect that a lot. But let's hop into who you are. Do you mind giving us some background information here? Who is Shay?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for that, by the way, Terry. I appreciate it. And yeah, who am I? That's the million-dollar question these days, honestly. I'm really figuring that out. But what I can answer is who I've been. Full transparency, I am changing a lot, but I'm known for and really skilled at video creation. So I started out my entrepreneurial career 8 years ago now as a video editor. I got jobs for large blogs online doing their video content and was able to through my clientele learn a lot about how to grow on social media. And I was really fortunate. It was one of those experiences where, like, you don't even realize how fortunate what you're doing is until, like, years later when it starts to pay dividends and you're like, "Wow, like, really valuable skill to know how to go viral and make videos and edit," and, of course, we all see that now, but, yeah, so I took the, skill set to LinkedIn after a few years of making videos for clients and managing a editing company. And I started to apply what I learned to my own personal brand on LinkedIn. And it was the golden age on LinkedIn. Video was new. A lot of people with, great businesses there, lots of money, but knew nothing about video. So I became the face and really took advantage of the market, positioned myself as a LinkedIn video trainer, grew a really big page on LinkedIn and collected the money, but I also realized now that I was uh not maturing emotionally as much as I could have at that time, which I think the money and the social media fame was disservice to me in that way. So that's why this past year, 2023, was all about me getting on it, feeling the energy for what it was, finally admitting, okay, yes, this fame and the, business on LinkedIn has been fun, but I've known for a while that there's something off about this, and it's not really me, that it's actually holding me back from something greater. So I'm gonna take a risk and just burn it down. So I shut it down last year, at least what it was. I do still have like a LinkedIn training, and we can talk about that. But
Mhm.
I started to just really, really change my business, fire people, uproot everything, change my lifestyle. And I wish I could say, oh, this is exactly where I've landed. And I know now that this is what I'm supposed to be doing, or this, but it's not been like that, Terry. It's really been like the more I break it down, the more I realize how much further I have to go and am faced with the realization of why I intuitively avoided this in the first place because there's a lot of deep healing that had to be done, and I feel that I'm still in the thick of that.
Mhm. Here's what I want to do because it's funny how alike we are in a few ways, and the one way that I want to talk about momentarily is how we're both going through an intentional transformation, and we're not quite sure where it's going yet. So I want to talk about that in a moment. But first, can we go back to your past and any moments of challenge that you had in your personal or professional life that that can show our listeners like, hey, everyone goes through some shit. And when you're going through it, gosh, it must feel horrible. But there is a way out. And through the stories that we share on this podcast, people don't necessarily get the tactics all the time, but at least the vision that things can get better. And so when I ask these deep personal questions, I'm not just trying to exploit you or any of the guests. It's just you got to have that substance before people can hear you sometimes and feel you. So with that, I'll ask you to share whatever experience that you feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah. No, it's great. I think it's important what you're doing. And I am super grateful for the hindsight and foresight, I guess, on everything now looking back. I think what would be really beneficial for your listeners is to hear about what happened when I was 26. I'm 31 now, so this all started about 5 years ago. Before I blew up on LinkedIn, before I, made a name for myself, a personal brand, which I am very grateful for because even though I'm pivoting in my offers and I'm like rediscovering who I am as a businesswoman, that brand is there and those followers are there. And I think it's really a blessing and something I'm very proud of. Not to mention, I also, for 3 years while running the LinkedIn business as it was, made over $1 million every single year. So,
Nice.
I was able to invest and set myself up for a situation like I'm in now, where it's like, hey, if I want to cut the cord and pivot, I can do that now. So I think it's important to give some um information about the success that I embarked on those 3 years after I turned 26, because per my introduction, people might think that it wasn't so great what I went through on LinkedIn, but it was amazing. I mean, I would show up to Newport Beach, California. People would stop and take my picture. I had businesses from all over the world wanting me to train them. I mean, it was like an incredible experience. I worked with the Cardones. I met Brad Lee. I was on Dan Locke's podcast. Lewis Howes like became a friend of mine, and I have his number in my phone. Like, I'm so grateful. It just, I was really young and I had this level of immaturity where I wasn't ready for it. So, um, let's talk about that and what really happened before I got this LinkedIn virality and blew up on LinkedIn, which really started to happen around 2019, 2020. Actually, during it, age 26 is when I first started to really get popular on LinkedIn, but 26 was a crapshoot. I mean, I'll go into it. So, you ready for this, Terry?
I'm ready.
Okay. So, my first company, I started when I was 23 in Wisconsin, where I'm from. I started it with my ex-boyfriend. We were very hardworking. We did have a lot of problems, but we put ourselves into our work and were able to grow a very successful business where we distributed licensed viral clips to publishers on Facebook. And at our peak, we're doing over 1 billion views a month. I sacrificed a lot in my 20s to learn video editing and help this man who I was in love with to, hopefully make something of ourselves, learn business, make a bunch of money. And it was a really intense time for me, because it was a hard relationship. But I learned so much and I poured myself into building that company. I gave up a lot of things that are easy to justify not being a problem in your 20s, like drinking, going out with friends, um, and I worked like 12 to 14-hour days to build that first company. But when I was 26, so this is like 3 years in now about, it was shortly after my 26th birthday. I was still living in Wisconsin running this company, and there was an incident that occurred which caused my investors to um basically demote me as co-founder. I was COO at the time. They wanted to, I think, demote me to creative director and take away my C-suite title. It was going the route of eventually I wouldn't get paid as much as the other partners, who were all male, by the way. And this broke me, like this was the start of the year 26. And I had no idea how much worse things were about to become. But ultimately, when I got the news from my investors that they didn't want me at the table anymore, it was, I guess, comparable to like your first bad breakup where your heart falls into your stomach and you wonder how you're even going to get through the next day. I mean, I remember just going back to my apartment and drinking, I think, whiskey or tequila by myself, uh, smoking weed. I smoked a lot of weed in my life. I had a rig, I was dabbing, and I was like, just a wreck. Like, what's going to happen to me? I gave up so much in my 20s for this business, and it was my baby. And I did not want to let it go, but I knew that with the options on the table, it was like stay and continue to feel devalued by these men and continue to watch new partners come on and surpass you when you were one of the founders, or get to buy you out and just leave. Like, take your losses, go now. And that's what I did. So it was one of those situations where I was happy for the money, but I was like really sad to leave my baby behind because I didn't feel ready and I felt cheated. And part of why I felt cheated was because of that relationship. Like I had put so much trust in this man to help him build this company, our company. And I just started to resent him as well. But I was really insecure and I didn't feel like I could leave him. And we were both very attached. So that was the beginning of age 26, and I'm born in October, okay? This is about like November, December, like the first 2 months of this age, I was dealing with the rejection from my own business, my investors, the buyout process, and literally saying goodbye to about 30 employees in the Milwaukee office at the time, many of who I managed, and trained and grew close with. And then about a month or so after the new year, my ex resigned. He was also not happy there. So we were still together, but as you can imagine, through this business breakup, like there was a lot of tension. I started to really resent him. I felt like, I gave all this up for you. You said this would work. And now what am I going to do? But the silver lining in all of this is I had started posting on LinkedIn already. And I, at this point, had like 30 or 40,000 followers. So I took the check. Me and my ex, after he resigned, moved to Miami, which is also a huge change, being a Midwest girl my whole life, living in Wisconsin. But we both knew we wanted to get out of the cold. We didn't have the business holding us down anymore. And so by March 1st, we were in Miami. And we were getting ready to start our next business together. And it was kind of like, okay, here we go again. get the computers, let's hustle, like hustle culture turned on, let's grind, startup mode, like the and something just really didn't sit right with me. I was like, I cannot do this all over again with this man. Like this is horrible. Like, yes, I got paid and I got the experience, but I knew deep down that I needed him and I needed it and I wanted out. And we fought constantly. It was a really toxic relationship. Um, so shortly after I moved to Miami, I met a man who told me about ayahuasca,
Mhm.
and it was not really of that much interest to me. It was more of like, okay, maybe like, I actually remember my ex getting the number for the shaman, not me. Like he was more interested than I even was, and I was like, yeah, whatever. Um, but God works in mysterious ways, and I do believe that that series of events shortly after coming to Miami happened for a reason because it wasn't more than a few weeks later. I would say, about a week or two into April, and this would have been 2019. So like a week or two into April 2019, fresh into Miami. We've been there like a month, right? And we got in this blowout fight again. Me and my ex, we got in another fight, and it was like, "I can't go on like this, like all this fighting, this toxicity." But something different happened that time with that fight, which was, um, he said to me, "Why are you such a victim?" And Shay, you can't take responsibility for anything. And what's interesting is he had said that to me many, many times in our arguments. What was different about this time was I got it. Like I saw what he meant. And for the first time, I just finally was like, you're right. I am. Like, why am I like this? I'm such a victim and I can't take responsibility and I blame you for everything and I'm stuck here in this relationship that I hate, but I resent because I feel like I can't do anything without you, but like you're mean to me and like I got kicked out of this company I built with you for you. Like, oh, it was like it all just came crashing down on me and I was like, I'm gonna go do that ayahuasca. He was like, "What?" Like, he wasn't even ready for it, but I was like, "Yeah,
Mhm.
no, that's it. I'm gonna go." Like, I had my question. I was so 100% yes aligned, like, in my whole body. I just knew, like, everything was crumbling apart. I was a total addict, smoking weed every day. I was completely codependent on this man. Like, my life was a wreck, and I was just like, "No, the one thing I know for sure is I need to go do that medicine." And I didn't know a lot about it, and I know that ayahuasca is overwhelming and scary for a lot of people, and I'm not gonna say that I wasn't scared. It was just like I was so ready for it because I was at the point of wanting to kill myself anyways. So how
Mhm.
is the psychedelic, like, really gonna, like, scare me? Like, "Oh, I'm gonna die? Who cares? I wanna die anyways." So, because I was in that mental state, I was in a really good place to receive this medicine. I was so surrendered. And I got there, and the shaman asked, "What's your question? What's your intention?" And I just straight up said, "Why am I such a victim? Like, what why am I like this? Help me." And I took medicine. I remembered being molested as a child. And that was the start of me really realizing a lot about why I was the way I was, why my family was the way they were, and why I had, at age 26, attracted this whole experience with this man and why I felt like I needed him, why I was so, helpless. So, as you can imagine, the overwhelming, like, experience of how could I have forgotten this? Like, this makes no sense. I mean, it makes perfect sense, but, like, how did I not see this or remember this at all? Because it's really not just it's not just, like, sexual abuse. It's really not just that. I would say equal part of it is the realization that the human mind can do this. I can repress, like, half my whole childhood. How is this even possible? Like, what, I don't know if we can swear on, but what a mind fuck. What a mind. So, like, I'm now back in Miami with this, like, like, crazy guys driving me nuts, and I'm starting to see him differently. Like, I'm like, wow, I just don't think that I can live with this man. Like, he's so angry. I need serious healing. I was disconnected from my family. I have no friends, like, was completely isolated in this relationship with this man and in a brand new city where I knew no one. So, long story short, I decided after a few months, yeah, I gotta move out. But I didn't break up with my partner at the time, and we were still trying to build a second business together. But I knew, said I gotta get my own space. Like, I'm gonna get my own apartment. And I think he intuitively knew that I was trying to pull away, but, like, I was still so attached. I was very dependent on him. I did not believe I could do anything without him. Definitely not start my own business. Um, I think that I was willing to risk it at that point. I was willing to, lose the business acumen and go back to waitressing and whatever. Cause I just, after the ayahuasca, I just knew, like, I need a serious life change. So I entered into this personal development program in South Florida. So that, so we got, let's do a quick, like, recap
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
The end of year 26 is like the first 2 months, demoted from my own company, had to leave. Then it was like month 3, 4, 5, uh, of, the age 26 is where I moved to Miami, and then I tried ayahuasca, and I got my memory back of being abused. Um, so that's all in a 6-month period, the demotion and then the memory. And by the way, I definitely also give credit to situation with my first business, and even, like, trauma that was of having to leave. I call it like getting Steve Jobs to live with, like, like, even, like, that trauma, I really think triggered the childhood trauma to come up. It was like, through that business experience, I started to, like, feel in my body so betrayed and wounded. Like, it really wasn't just about the business, right? And then insert a few months later, ayahuasca, got the memories back. Okay. Now, a few more months go by. I'm on month, like, probably 9 or 10 of age 26. And there's some good things happening. I'm starting to find my grounding in Miami. I'm, like, doing all this, like, healing, personal development, but I still live with the ex. I hadn't gotten my own apartment yet. And I entered into this personal development program with him that, you know, I realize now was very, like, culty, and they had a lot of ways of doing things that were not good for someone like me who that much trauma going into the program. It's not that the program was all bad. I actually think there was a lot of good things in that program. I just think they weren't really trained in that type of environment to deal with trauma. And I went in with a lot of trauma. And my boyfriend was still with me, still living together at the time, but it's like during the program, I'm looking for my own apartment and I'm getting ready to move out. During that program, we also met a girl that we both became friends with, and I didn't know, but during the program, he started, an affair with her.
Mm.
Yeah. So then it was, shortly after I found out, and he told me he was leaving me for her. And it was all within the same, like, 2 weeks that I was, like, searching for my own apartment, getting my own apartment, moving out. So, really just like a very intense codependency. Like, I think part of him, yeah, probably knew intuitively, like, "Okay, this is the start of the end. Like, just let her go." Um, but because I was, the goal was to get strong enough to fully leave him, not just move out. But I also think he was just so wounded and codependent that, like, immediately me leaving his space, he needed, like, a replacement. But it was very hurtful, and there was a lot of really, um, just really, I'll say there was negligence done by that community, that personal development community around this whole situation. There was a lot of negligence. There was a complete um lack of empathy and professionalism even for my situation. And it was very traumatizing. I mean, talk about the ayahuasca, this.
Mm.
Not necessarily just the cheating, like, of course, been my partner for 4 years, we grew a business together, I did love him, but it was like that the way that I was treated in that community, um, after the affair and everything was really, really traumatizing and hurtful, and that was, all right before my 27th birthday, so that was it.
How does it feel? First of all, thank you for sharing that because
You're welcome. Yeah, thanks for listening. You're a great listener.
well, this is a story that needs to be told, and I don't need to interject. And I applaud you for even being able to share that. I have a question, and you can punt this one or you can reply. But did your family know about the child abuse? And if so, how has that impacted your ability to communicate with them? Because if you're breaking up with your boyfriend, he's cheating on you. You need some kind of support system. And I'm wondering who that was. Was it your family? Was it, some other friends you had? Was it nobody? Like, what did that look like in that dark period of time?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, it's interesting because I already, before age 26, was really not that close with my family. And I knew intuitively from a younger age, like, something off about these people. I gotta get away from them.
Mm.
Granted, I attracted a boyfriend just like them, but that's how we
Mm.
do until we figure it out, right? Um, but yeah, so like I was not in a place in my life already the year prior of like leaning on my family for support, but the abuse was my family. So that is also where, my separation from them became very solidified after the ayahuasca because then I was like, "Oh, yeah, no, I get why I was like, I feel like I gotta get away from these people. Like, I know they're my family, but like something's off about them." Then I got the memories, then it was confirmed, and I even more so distanced myself. Actually, I had a lot of fear of my family at that time because, I was reliving, like, the childhood memories where when you're a child, you fear the adults, right? So, like, I had a
Mhm.
lot of irrational fears about the people that raised me coming like, finding out that I had remembered and, like, coming to kill me. I had nightmares. So, yeah, like, when he was really a lot of, like, all that I had, he was. But I also knew that he was no good. And after the I started to realize he wasn't really about this healing journey. He didn't really want to go on it with me. So when we broke up and he left me for this girl in the program, um, the people in the program like became my support,
Mhm.
but they were not really supportive in hindsight. Looking back, it was like very weird, almost like voodoo, because a lot of what you learn in the spiritual community and in personal development is like own everything, like everything is your fault and like you attract everything. Now, I'm not saying that that isn't true, but there's a time and a place in someone's
Right.
like healing journey where they're ready to receive that information and move from the victim to the victor. And it's like you wouldn't tell a rape victim that comes in the hospital with blood between their legs, like, what were you wearing? Like, in that
Mm.
moment, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
hello. So it was just really inappropriate, and what happened was, like, because I was new in Miami, I didn't have support. This community was, like, my only support. I got my, like, brain was trying to adapt to the situation, and I basically just shoved a lot of the relationship into a box and, like, didn't bring it up again and pretended like I healed, and then started to blow up on LinkedIn, by the way, and got all this money and fame, and, like, that was a great distraction. But I realize now in hindsight, the reason that I did that is because I didn't really feel like I could process what I'd been through with the community, this, like,
Mhm.
cult-like, personal development community, because it was like, instead of letting me be a victim for a little bit, just vent, just normal, like, "Oh, man, screw him. I can't believe he cheated on me," this, like, it was like, "Well, what did you do to attract her?
Right.
Well, what did you," and it was like, "Whoa, like, I don't need this right now." It was really hard, and it exacerbated my shame, and, yeah, I actually remained friends with some of those people for that community for years to come before I eventually started to find clarity and figure it out and, like, get the hindsight on the whole situation and then pull away, and that's, like, where I'm at today is really unwinding and reprogramming my brain to, uh actually heal, to actually process everything, and I think it's a gift from God, like, um, I learned a lot in those communities in the personal development, like, I got a lot of resources on my tool belt I'm grateful for, but in the end, God's like, "You gotta heal this, Shay, you only." So, my support, to answer your question, like, yes, I had people along the way, and I'm grateful for that, but really my support has been God.
I need to I need to give you a break because I'm just like I'm asking a lot of very sensitive questions and you're very generously answering them, but I don't want this to ever turn into a show where I'm just pulling out the worst moments in someone's lives and just for entertainment. So I want to talk about something I'm experiencing right now, and it's related to you. On one of your hands, you have a ring that has a fleur de lis. Am I correct about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So my family, part of my family's from New Orleans, and that's
Oh.
very important to us. And my brother has one of those tattooed on his arm, and unfortunately, he passed away 2 months ago. So as I'm talking to you and I'm seeing that, I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be having these conversations because I've suffered other losses in my life. I told you earlier, I lost my son, I lost my father, I lost my grandfather, all within the last 8 years, and I've always tried to just kind of move forward as fast as possible. But what I'm doing now is instead of trying to go around it, I'm trying to go through it. And your ring is just reminding me like this is part of going through it. So I'm I've always had a bet. I'm like, who's gonna be the first person to cry in this show? Hopefully it won't be me. But I'm right now having this experience and I want to thank you for that because these are the conversations people need to have when they're going through some shit. And unfortunately, they don't always have that support, or they get the wrong support where someone's like, oh, get over it, or like, oh, what'd you do to bring
Mm.
this on? So I just want to say thank you for this experience I'm having right now. And I know already our listeners are getting a lot out of it too. But when I saw that ring, I was like, this is supposed to happen. So thank you for that.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, that's God, and that's God working through me and through you in this conversation and what I've learned on my healing journey. Um, Really, this past year is where I
Mhm.
finally got sober and started to process everything that happened at age 26. It's like when we can still our mind and clear everything out, get rid of the drug, get rid of the distractions, like the social media, the fame. That was like a big thing for me, my own self-obsession.
Mm.
Um, it's like there's a supernatural world that's trying to come here, and it's trying to come down and communicate with us, just like this ring. But because of the way of our culture and the lifestyle that we've created, we're not present enough to see it, to feel it, to trust it, to be with it.
Mhm.
And more than anything this past year, that is what I have realized is, whoa, like God had been trying to speak to me all along. There's signs, there's safety, and I just have to trust. I have to let go of trying to control my own life, trying to control myself, image and create all of these boundaries around me to not feel the pain and the suffering of what I had gone through. So, yeah.
I'll share something else because I think again we're on this journey. We both don't know where we're going, but there's clues sometimes that we're going in the right direction. And I'll share this with you. When my brother died, I just stopped talking to people. Like I don't text as much unless it's important. Like I'm not texting back and forth. Like I don't have all these additional conversations going on that aren't in front of me, like right in front of my face. And that alone is helping me focus more. There's a study from Stanford, I believe, that said like at 47% of the time we're just not paying attention, and that wandering mind causes unhappiness. So on my end, I just blocked out a lot of distractions. Like I read Essentialism over the holiday break and just blocked out a lot of distractions. I've been a lot happier than I ever have been. And then my niece came to visit too, my brother's daughter. She lost her father. I'm like, Talia, how are you? She's like, I'm actually doing okay because I'm blocking out all the noise. And something else that's happening, Shay, I live here in Brooklyn. As I'm walking around the neighborhood, I'm just seeing like beauty everywhere. Like, oh, it's a wonderful building. Like, that's a cool looking tree. Like, but I've walked by that same building hundreds of times, walked by that same tree hundreds of times. So it's like, to your point, there's something else that we can experience if we block out the bullshit. And the sooner we identify what that bullshit is, I think the more focused we'll be, the more happy we'll be, and we'll have the fuel and the focus to continue on the journey. Everyone has these dreams, like, oh, I want to do this and that, but it's like you can't do that with all these distractions. And I think the worst distractions are distractions disguised as opportunities. Because I guarantee people are still reaching out to you saying, Shay, we got this new TV show. Shay, we want you to be this, influencer for this. Shay, we want that. Like, no, like right now, like you're like, no, dude, I got to sit here and sit with this.
Huh.
And I commend you for that.
Well, I'm glad that you said that because that's a good segue into something else I wanted to make sure to share before we wrap up, which is like I did take about a year and some change off of podcasts, speaking appearances, everything. I mean, I just started saying no to everything. Like I was like, I can't. There's something like just so wrong about this brand. Like I'm sorry. Like I started saying no. And what it is and what I've processed and what I'm still processing is I was for those years blowing up on LinkedIn and getting all the podcasts and the speaking engagements and the social media fame and like business celebrity connections. Like it was like it swept me away. But remember, this all started around age 27, which was I was coming off the year of like excess trauma that I did not know how to process. And then I was gifted with all of this fame and all of this money. So I really dove into ego. Like all in. I mean, I was extremely egoic, and I um started to become self-obsessed as a way to cope and again distract myself from the pain and the shame
Mhm.
and the despair and the heart-wrenching everything that I had been through from childhood until now. So it was like another form of addiction where I got addicted to myself. I got addicted to my
Mhm.
brand and I got addicted to how people were viewing me. Um, so I actually like I brought this up to a friend once. If you ever want to see if you are, a little narcissistic or like concerned with how others view you, like, have you ever sent like an audio message to someone and then once you see that they read it, you listen to your own voice again to like see through their perspective, like, how did I sound? Maybe you've done that, maybe
Yeah.
not. Maybe
Well,
it's
no,
just
I'll start and stop several times because I'm like, I'm messing up, right? So
oh, that's
I'm even worse than what you're describing.
maybe not though. I think it's one and the same. But the point is like I this past year, like, those things started to become, I started to become aware of those. It was like,
Mhm.
"Why am I doing this? Why am I watching, like, who's watching my story? Why am
Mhm.
I listening to myself back? Why am I watching my own video? Why am I" and then, woo, it's been, um, a really interesting experience being on this podcast because I have been going through months of being shown firsthand, like a front row seat to the voice in my head. And when I say the voice in my head, I'm not just talking about ego, which we all have that, but I'm specifically talking about a voice in my head that I was not conscious to before, that plans what she's going to say, that rehearses how she's going to sound in interviews, that is basically just future casting, like a idealized version of herself that she would like others to perceive. And I started to like I said, I got sober, gave up all substances, really don't have friends, really don't hang out with anyone anymore. It's just me and God and like, okay, I need to deal with this trauma.
Mhm.
And it's created so much clarity in my head. I can hear this voice. And then more recently, in the past 3 months, I did 2 months straight of hyperbaric oxygen therapy in a hard chamber, which basically just exacerbated the whole process. And that voice became even more apparent. So my days are filled with this like endless redirecting of hearing the voice go off and having my true self, who is the observer of the voice, right?
Mhm.
Because we're not really the voice. Like I'm no longer identifying with that. I'm just seeing it. And so now my true self, it's just constantly redirecting and saying, "Nope, you don't need to plan what you're gonna say. Nope, you could." And so what this comes down to, Carrie, and what is ultimately the beautiful part of this healing journey is learning and trusting the present moment.
Mhm.
That's it. That's all we have. What you've been doing with that voice, Shay, and what you've been running from your whole life with smoking weed and addictions and everything is like you haven't trusted the present moment. You haven't felt okay in your body. Your nervous system has been shot. Like you've just been running with PTSD your whole life, basically like complex CPTSD. And now I'm um curious what my career and what my life is going to look like because I built such a huge brand with that
Mhm.
voice. And that voice is not really me. And I don't want to identify with it anymore because it was driving me crazy and it was causing me a lot of anxiety. And I'm just taking it one day at a time. But yeah, your podcast is actually one of the first ones I've been on since this whole realization about my own narcissism and my healing journey. So thank you for holding space and um yeah.
Well, thank you as well, Shay. And here's how I know we're both going to be okay. One of my buddies, one of my mentors, he says, whenever you're going through a transition, you got to write down what you're willing to do, become, experience, learn, and sacrifice. And if you can do that, you can make it through that transition. But where people get stuck is they don't want to sacrifice. However, you and I have already made sacrifices. So we've already solved the toughest part of it, right? And now we just have to focus on the other parts. And there's no rush either, right? To your point, just be present in
Mm.
the current moment and enjoy it. We can move forward from the past. We can enjoy the present and prepare for the future. But this has been great for me too. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your story. I'd love to catch up with you another time too about your brother and everything you went through the past 8 years. Your 8 years, you said, right? Where you lost
Yeah.
everyone. Yeah, that's crazy. And all men.
Yeah, like
It's
four
interesting.
generations of men in my family just wiped out, and it's tough, you know. But yeah, I mean, right now is good. Like right now, this current moment, I'm enjoying, and like you said, that's what we have.
Exactly. And I think what I'm learning more than anything is like this ability to be present with the pain and feel the suffering and feel the shame and feel the sadness. And it's really a lot of grief I'm realizing that I never went through. Like when you finally take that first step, like put down the drugs, put down the social media, and like really go into the pain, um, it gets easier. And I think you start to build neural pathways in your brain where you're like, oh, wait a minute, I did it. I didn't die. Like I'm safe. Like I could do it again. And you start to actually experience the benefit of fully processing things moving through your body and coming out the other side. Like, oh, I actually feel better. Wow, I actually cried. I haven't cried in years. Like that probably needed to come out. So um it like my new addiction is honoring the pain. Okay, I need to honor the pain. I need to honor the suffering. It's not going to be easy. And that's what I remind myself of every day. I wake up and I still think about it. Like, should I go start dating? Should I smoke weed? Should I smoke a cigarette? It's like eating is another good one for me. Like, should I go have a cookie? It's like, you're going to feel the pain. That's it. Like, there's no other way around this. You're going to feel it. Whether you get addicted to eating sugar and become obese, you're going to feel the pain that way of being overweight, or you're going to feel the pain this way of, just being present with what's coming up. So just trust it. And I'll just end with this quote, which I recently heard, which I love, which has also been definitely something I've realized the more and more I give up substance is like, if you want to know why you do something, stop doing it.
Hmm. I like that. I
Yeah.
like that.
Like, oh, you'll find out quickly.
Oh wow. Well, Shay, this has been incredible. I can't thank you enough. I mean, this is meaningful for me. It's meaningful for our listeners, and I'm glad that you got value out of it as well. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you for listening to my story. And I'm grateful.